Hello everybody. And so today I'm going to make a few videos that are going to discuss the acceleration of time and how most of us experience it, that in the modern world time seems to speed up. As the more technology develops, the more all these new media technology develops, the more it feels like time is accelerating. And so there's a way to understand that. And I'm going to start this video and talk a bit about the principle of that. And then maybe in a few other videos, I might talk about other systems like credit, which really interest me. So here we go. This is Jonathan Pageau. Welcome to the Symbolic World. So one of the staples of the modern world is this sense, this feeling that time is accelerating. Now, it's interesting because we really need to step into a phenomenological point of view in order to understand that, because the scientists, the materialists will tell you that, of course, no, time's a constant. Time doesn't actually accelerate, but in the human experience, it doesn't exist that way. Time works in these is compressible and is also expandable. And in our experience, we've all experienced moments where a minute lasts, phenomenologically lasts, feels like it lasted an hour. We've also experienced how, something will just snap by and we feel like no time has gone by at all. And so in terms of society, one of the phenomena that we've seen in the modern world is this acceleration of time. Everything is moving faster. We see people running around. We see people who have no time, people who are always pressed, people who are always rushing. And this is a side effect of modernity in general. There are many factors which feed into this experience and this reality. One of them is, of course, in general, this technology. Technology speeds up time. Now, why does it speed up time? So you have to understand the world. I've given you this model before, but the best way to understand it is to understand the world as a wheel, okay? And in the middle of the wheel is something invisible, like our identity, like a name, like the spiritual aspects which bring us together, that which makes us anything one, you could call the center of the wheel. And so as you move out from that center, as you move out, you have to add these layers around you in order to help you to move further and further away. And so you can understand it in terms of technology. I've talked about this in terms of what's called the garments of skin. This notion that as a human person, there are certain limited things you can do. And then when you add technologies to you, what it does is it makes you more powerful. It makes you able to move further away from what you would usually be able to do. Okay. It moves you away from that, but then it also makes you dependent on those technologies. And so as you add technologies and you are able to move further and further away from what you usually would do, you can accomplish more in a shorter amount of time, right? And so if I just have a rock and I have to bang nails into my house, it's going to take forever. But if I have a nail gun, I could just I could knock those nails in just in a few minutes. And so what's funny about it is that we usually use the word to save time, but that is not what ends up happening. We don't actually end up saving time. What we end up happening is compressing, or let's say we end up accelerating our existence, and then we end up doing more than we would if we were. So imagine it would take you a full day to hammer in some nails with a hammer, but then if I have a nail gun, I just can do it in a few minutes. And what it ends up doing is time ends up replacing time that ends up replacing space, you could say, or time ends up eating away at normal space because it compresses it. It like pushes space together. Now, when I talk about the nail gun and the nails, it's a little bit harder to understand, but if I talk, it's there, but it's harder to picture. But if I talk about something like transportation, then of course it's quite easy to see. What we've seen, for example, what modern transportation has done to space is that it has almost destroyed space. It has destroyed coherent space. Now, the car, for example, now the way we understand, even the way we understand distance, we understand distance in terms of time. We calculate distance in terms of how long does it take, how many kilometers an hour can I cover, or how many miles an hour can I cover? Sorry, I'm Canadian. How many miles an hour can I cover in order to reach somewhere else? And so the distance that a place has is calculated in time, right? We calculated how much time is covered. And what happens with the automobile is that we compress time. We're pushing time, we compress space, sorry. We're pushing space together. And so in order to reach somewhere which before would take me several days journey, now takes me a few hours. And so we're making time, we're eating away at space, right? We're eating away at space. We're making space disappear, or we're slowly eroding at normal space. And this is happening in the way, it's part of the, I've told you this before, the way that cities are set up, the way that we set up our societies are now totally based on this transportation. And so instead of having a concentric city model with a church and a town center with a bank and the market and the government building, and then you have houses and businesses around that that kind of layer out into this concentric model of stable space. Instead, we have fragmented our space, and so we take our car and we can drive for 20 minutes to go to a restaurant. Then you take our car, you could drive 20 minutes to go to half an hour, 45 minutes to go to your work. You do that, and so what happens is we have let's say massive shopping malls that are just this one blip on a map, and it's this huge shopping mall which is meant to serve people that are miles and miles and miles away. And then you have the same with houses and houses spread up across the land. And so what's happening is it's compressing our capacity to inhabit space, you could say it. And so definitely we see it in transportation, but we see it even more in terms of the new technologies, the internet. The internet is really a transportation method. The internet, what it does is it makes space disappear. And so everything has become time. In the internet, everything has become time. All these servers that are all over the world, we don't even know where the information goes through. We don't even know what it takes in terms of this kind of hidden secret network underneath to make our experience of immediacy happen. And so with the internet and the telephone, all the communication technologies, but the internet most of all, it connects us with people that are all over the map. And so the map ceases to exist. Everything becomes then we've actually reduced that to zero, right? We've reduced with these communication systems, we've reduced the time, the space to absolute zero. So there's an immediacy where I can be in contact with people from all over the world at the same time, and everybody can be there and be, let's say in communication with me from all these different places, and we can access information from everywhere in simultaneity, right? And so the ultimate result of that is, you could call it the destruction of time. I keep using the wrong word. The destruction of space. Space gets eroded, and gets turned into this strange simultaneous point in time where everything, this weird simultaneous point in space where time is the only factor which links me to all over the planet, okay? And so it's very odd, because it actually, this speeding up of time is actually a destructive force. It is really like a dragon on the edge of space, which is slowly devouring the space. And soon you just have this whirlwind of motion, this whirlwind of time, which is spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's dizzying. And we can all experience that dizzying as we live in these frenetic times and this kind of frenetic motion of experience. And so it's difficult to think about this stuff. And so maybe some of you will think that it's not totally clear. And I have to be honest, this is stuff that I'm still kind of working on, and I'm still trying to fully. Once you start to think about it too much, your brain starts to fry. There's an interesting thing also that happens, like this interplay between time and space in the modern world is very particular, because let's say in ancient times there used to be two modes of being, you could say. There used to be sedentary mode, where someone would inhabit the land and then would exist in space, would inhabit the land and would then witness time, you could call it like that. And so you live in a place and you look at the stars move, and you see the sun move, and you see the cycles around you. And there's another mode of living which could be called nomadic existence, which was kind of like the weird opposite, where you actually traveled through space, but you inhabited time. So these two modes of being are very fundamental. In fact, you find them right there at the beginning of the Bible in the story of Cain and Abel, where you have the Cain, who is an agriculturist, and you have Abel, who is a nomad, who is a pastoral figure. And so those two modes of being, they tend to balance each other out. And what's very odd is in the modern world, we have eliminated the nomadic lifestyle. There are no really nomadic tribes anymore. Maybe a little bit the gypsies, and maybe in Africa a few nomadic tribes like the Tuareg, or maybe the Maasai, a few tribes like that are nomadic, but they're very few, and they're very compressed, because we want to delimit everything. The world has these very clear borders. Everything has been completely manifest. There's no place in the world which is vague and which is not totally defined. And so I think that's also part of this strange idea that somehow we are now being, how can I say this, that we inhabit this space, but we can see time is accelerating around us, and then also space is being compressed into time. It's very odd. It's very difficult to understand, because even when you think about it, it kind of flips in your mind. But hopefully that'll be food for thought. And what I'm hoping to do is, because I've been trying to figure this stuff out for a long time. I've been trying to figure this stuff out for years, in fact. And so hopefully, I was really excited about a lot of your comments on my Merlin video. A lot of people had some good ideas about the, let's say, symbolic challenge that I posed to all of you. And so I would ask all of you to get on board again, and to think about time and space, and to think about this strange acceleration of time that we're going through. Because one of the things that technology does is that technology is on the edge, right? So you add these layers as you move forward. And there's also this notion that as you move out, right, as you move out from your center, you're also moving out into the future. And so there's a sense in which the potentiality that's on the outside of this ring that I try to describe the world as is also the potentiality of the future. And so as technology increases, as technology accelerates, it's also as if the future is coming at you faster. And so the experience of the future is accelerating, right? And you see it in technology all the time. It's like, these technologies that succeed each other, and everything is speeding up in terms of technology. But for some strange reason, it does that also to our existence itself, not just the technology, but as we engage in that mode of being, which is this constant taking from potentiality, this adding layers upon layers upon layers, and we just do it faster and faster and faster, that what's happening is our experience of time is also changing, and the world is accelerating around us. And it seems to be something that we can't totally control. It seems to be something which is part of this cosmic experience, like a cosmic cycle that we're going through. But I think that it's probably good to be aware of it in order to be able to mitigate the consequences on our psyche. Because obviously, I think that diseases like ADHD, those types of diseases, attention deficit and hyperactivity, all those diseases which suddenly have popped up in our society, which never existed before, are part of the problem, right? The notion that you would have attention deficit, that your attention cannot focus on one thing for a long time, but that you're constantly shifting your attention to something which is coming on the horizon, seems to be a good way to describe our society as a whole, as we move forward and forward into new technologies and into this constant change of experience. And we also expect that to be happening in terms of everything. We expect things to change in terms of our morality, in terms of our social structures, in terms of, a lot of the social justice stuff has to do with this idea that somehow this change and this breakdown of stable identities, of stable gender identities, is part of the deal. But you can actually see time destroying space when you think of how this notion that we need to change, we need to adapt to these new gender realities. Gender is multiplying in infinite amounts, and this constant change, this fluidity, this gender fluidity, is devouring the identities of which they're dependent, right? Of which what they're talking about. And this is happening not only in terms of gender, but it's also happening in terms of the family, in terms of these broken relationships, of people, of the massive rate of divorce, and then people getting back together again. And so you have these splintered identities. As people desire change, as people want to change their relationship, it ends up splintering our identities and having, you have your mother, and then your stepfather, and then you have your father and her girlfriend, and then they break up again, and then it creates this massive chaos of relationships, as we desire, and as we are in a world that sees change as a mode of existing in itself. And so hopefully that is something that will give you food for thought. And I think my next video is going to be about the economic system and about credit, and how credit participates in this system of accelerating time and the breakdown of identity and space. For those who are interested, a lot of this stuff is the basics of this stuff. Let's say the structure of this is covered in my brother's book. I've told you many times, The Language of Creation, so check it out if you're interested in getting a sense of this notion of a relationship between time and space. I think it'd be quite worthy. I want to give you a little bit of news in terms of my own experience for those who made it this far in the video. Our family, for the first time 2 days ago, we had a sit-down meal, just our family. It was the first time in 3 weeks that we have been able to do that. We are in this rental house that we are going to stay in for a few months, because everything is still unclear in terms of the government, in terms of the new regulations with the dike, whether or not it's going to change places. We know that some areas are going to be not inhabitable anymore. They're just going to destroy the houses, and people are going to have to find other places. We don't know where that is. We're pretty sure that our house isn't going to be part of that, but we're definitely not going to make any decision and go back into our house, or we need to rebuild the basement, and even the first floor was wrecked as well, because we had to go downstairs, and we kind of wrecked the floor. We have to redo stuff. So we're not going to do that until we have the proper information. So for now, we're kind of in this in-between state, which is probably why I'm thinking about this breakdown of identity, chaos world. And so hopefully we can get something fruitful out of it, and it'll be helpful. Last thing too, on this Saturday, this Sunday and next Monday, I forget what the day is. I'll put it in the description, the exact date. I will be in Shreveport, Louisiana. I will give 2 talks, one on the Sunday, one on the Monday. The talks will be about, one will be about the shape of paradise in the human heart, and it'll be trying to relate the cosmology with the personal experience, and the other will be about how funny is the end of the world, living in a world of the margin. And so talking about the craziness of our world, marginalia and monsters and all of that great stuff. And so if you are in the area, it would be great to have you. Check out the details in the descriptions. Those will be the clearest ones. And hope to see you there. Everybody that has been giving money to us in terms of the flood stuff, I'm eternally grateful. It has brought such peace of mind to my family to be able to rent this house while we're waiting. A lot of the other families are having to camp out. You know, they borrowed campers and are on their yard and are just kind of waiting for the government to decide. And it's a pretty sad, desolate situation. And so because we have all these people that care for us and that have been wanting to help us, we're at least able to be here as a family and try to restart our life as much as possible. So hopefully I'll be able to get some videos to you pretty soon. And thanks again for sticking around. And yeah, all right, see you everybody soon. Bye.